be a long time before any of us will get the image of the cannibalistic Hannibal Lecter out of our minds from Silence of the Lambs. But his current film adds to the list of the brilliant things he's done on the screen with a very different kind of personality, and it's the great E.M. Forster novel, Howard's End. Welcome.
Good to be here.
To get this out of the way right away, what are you sickest of in terms of people coming up and joking to you about, you know, the way they come up to magicians and say, "Can you make my mother-in-law disappear?" Do people come up and say, "Hey, Hannibal, would you?"
I bite them on the nose.
Yeah.
And on the ear.
Just
and the heels. And they,
yeah.
they scalp it. They go across the street.
Is there
Sometimes they cross the street before I get to them.
Okay. People do realize it's you, though, do they? Even though you, sitting here now, do not look precisely like the demon you created on the screen.
No. It is funny, though, because I've done a few interviews the last few days, and people do think that I'm going to bite them. And I don't think they're pretending, but they are a bit nervous, and they start laughing nervously.
I don't know if you could sense it, but I was at a thing last night where you walked out upon a stage briefly at some ceremonies before the screening of the movie. And when you entered, there was a sort of ooh around me, as well as the applause. Yeah. So for a time, you will know what Boris Karloff must have felt like.
Yes.
Only cliche I can think about you is the fact that you're an immense star who had an unhappy childhood, or do you want to correct me on that?
Well, I could correct you a little. I think it's a sort of misquote. I didn't have an unhappy childhood as such. I mean, my parents were loving parents. I was the only child. I was a bit lonely, that's all. I had a lonely school career.
Okay.
That's what it was, and I was and it dogged me for years and years and years. And I don't regret 1 minute of it, because it was the rocket fuel that made me become an actor, to compensate for all that loneliness and lack of confidence and all that.
Yeah, I see how I misstated it now, because just about everything I've read about you has talked about the fact that at school you felt you couldn't learn anything. You either would or couldn't learn mathematics. You felt you didn't belong anywhere. You thought you were...
That's true. That is all true.
I think they convinced you were stupid.
Yes, they did.
And, but what saved you? You were a musician?
I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be a pianist. I still play, you know. I'm not that good, but I mean, I don't play in front of people because I get embarrassed by it, so I just play in my own place. I played a lot of classics. And I wanted to be a concert pianist. Actually, I just wanted to be very famous because I wanted to meet Claire Bloom. That's all, because I fell in love with...
Specifically Claire Bloom?
Claire Bloom, because I saw her in the film Limelight with Charlie Chaplin. I thought, I've got to become famous. I've got to become successful, because then I'll meet her. So I thought I'd become a musician. I don't know why. I thought, well, if you get well known, you meet all these movie stars and actresses. Anyway, I became an actor 20 years later. I did actually work with her, and we played Man and Wife in The Doll's House on film.
Now, we're always told that when our dreams come true, they're a little disappointing. How did she disappoint you?
Oh, she didn't. Well, she was okay. She was very nervous at the time. And, yeah, she was fine.
Did you ever tell her that you were specifically, she was one of your dreams as a small boy? No. When I asked you about the music, I was thinking about that. As a kid, you could at least survive on the fact that you could play a bit and do what we call imitations of your teachers.
Oh, yes. Well, that was my defense, because I couldn't belong amongst my colleagues in school, you know, my contemporaries. The only bridge to kind of normal living was for me to mimic schoolmasters and impersonate these school teachers and anyone in authority. And then I developed it as time went by and became quite astute at imitating movie stars and actors and politicians. And I also played the piano. I was a very lonesome, solitudinous child. I used to play the piano and improvise, and looked very sad and felt very sad. But all this was fodder for my future as an actor, I guess.
Yeah, if you can survive the childhood, it'll all be grist for the mill later on.
Yeah, well, most people say that
actors.
Childhood is the most painful part of one's life, I think.
Yeah, and someone said anyone who thinks he really had a happy one is deluded, as they find out of their psychoanalysis. Yeah. It seems to me everybody in Wales is related. There only seem to be about 5 family names. Everyone's is either an Evans or a Richards or
That's right, Jones, Davis.
Yeah. So you and I might be. I had a Welsh grandfather.
Yeah.
Now, the part of Wales you came from, what accent would your headmaster have had?
Well, he was Welsh. He was a rugby player and played They got what they got his rugby cap, which means that he played international rugby for Wales. That was my last school. His name was Idwal Rees. He spoke with a strong Welsh accent. He was a tyrant of a man. And
how would he greet a class or discipline? Could you give us some?
He used to shut up and stand up straight and quiet and all that. And then
did he trill his R's?
Oh, I know. Actually, I've got a very close Welsh accent, although it's sort of modified.
Yeah.
I was born in the same town as Richard Burton. Richard had a much more cultivated voice than mine.
Do Burton for a second.
Burton, to be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune.
I would swear
I
he
saw
was
him in it.
sitting here.
But I've got a much more rapid delivery than Richard. I suppose because I've got maybe a much more, I don't know, maybe I've got a faster rhythm or something.
And did you get his autograph as a kid?
I did. I was 15 years of age, and I went to his house in Cavett Street. Cavett, there's a Welsh name. Cavett Street in Taibach, Port Talbot. Yeah. And knocked on the door, praying that he wouldn't answer it. And his sister came to the door, and I said, it's Richard Burton. And she said, come in. She said, Richard, it's Dick Hopkins' boy, Dick Hopkins in the baker. So I went in, and there was Richard shaving with an electric razor. He had a T-shirt on. And I'd never seen anyone with an electric razor. And his wife, Sybil, was sitting at the table reading the morning paper. He said, what do you want? I said, I have an autograph, please. He said, all right. Where are you from? I said, Commercial Road, Taibach. He said, I used to work in the co-op shop across there, in the shoe shop. He said, I was hopeless. So I immediately, there was a kindred spirit, because he was hopeless at his job and I was hopeless.
Burton was hopeless. There might be hope.
There was hope, yes.
Burton, what we were talking about earlier, on a show I did with him, I tremulously raised the subject of booze. And I said, would you talk about it? And as you know, he did. He looked into the camera and delivered a very moving speech, really, about if it's your enemy as well as it is mine, I know what you're going through, and so on and so on. This was actually clipped out and used by AA and others because it was so well done. Now, you fall into the same category. You've had a period that's always written about excessive boozing and wildness, and if you think O'Toole and Burton were something, you should have seen Hopkins at his best or worst, and so on, and you've beaten it.
Yeah, I was pretty mild, really, compared to those two, those Hellraisers.
You declined the title, do you?
Yeah, I did. I gave up the championship. Yeah. I was just a nuisance more than anything. I wasn't really a Hellraiser. I was just in a lot of trouble. I was just a nuisance. Yeah. And one day, some years ago now, I stopped. I thought, this is crazy. And I was very tired and fed up with myself, and I stopped. Was it just an act of will? Did you have help? I got some help for it, and, and I realized that I wasn't alone with it, and that was the end of that. I'm glad to say, and I never thought it would be possible to live without it, because it was my only sustenance, it was my only way of coping. And now I've got into the habit over the years of not drinking, and life is so much better. You know? My guess is that the Welsh have a higher rate of depression than other races. I haven't seen the statistics on it. We know the Scandinavians do. Yeah. And it's a pretty gloomy land. Yeah. Wales. It's very isolated on the little peninsula. And they're very melancholy people. The Irish have got much more going for them because they're much more extrovert and crazier than the Welsh. The Welsh are rather repressed. Yeah. Good people, though. You know. I don't have problems with being Welsh or non-Welsh or anything. But my Welsh colleagues will say, "What are you saying? You're a Welsh actor. You know English?" Yeah. I say, "Oh, forget it." So I say British now, just to hedge my bet. If only England looked like it does in Howard's End all the time. Now, isn't it beautiful? I would have been happy to be in 1910 in England. You enjoyed the film? Very much. Isn't there a way in which it's a little easier for an actor to play an insane man than it is to play a terribly ordinary man who has dimensions to him that have to be seen? Like this man that you play is proper, he's repressed, he does not like the lower classes, he eventually collapses. It seems to me, in a way, it would be harder to play someone like that than to play a madman. Well, because of one's vanity, you always wanted to look good, you always want to be the sympathetic character. So playing Wilcox, you don't have much chance. Yeah. What I try to do is, I'm wearing that silly cap, and looking like, whatever they call it. And, but it is difficult, but not as difficult as that, but it's much more fun playing the villains. Is it? Oh, yes. Yeah. To see what a son of a bitch you can be. Yeah, he has much more dimension to it.